On the show. I've been sitting down and watching it, and it is an absolutely fantastic show. I know our listeners are going to love it as well, so congratulations.
Oh, that's lovely of you to say. That is lovely of you to say. It's been a week since the last episode dropped, so I have a bit of distance from it, and I look at some of it and I'm like, that's actually not too bad. But then other bits I'm like, oh God, I could have done better there. So still a bit close to it, but we're quite proud of what we've done.
Yeah. Now, talking about distance, you're not in on our fair shores at the moment. Tell us a little bit about where you are at the moment and what you're doing over there.
So I'm in New York at the moment. I'm here working with an NGO, which is like another word for a big charity, you could say, or a charity that kind of operates at a fairly, say, diplomatic level. So for an NGO called Global Citizen, and they're doing a big global event on the 25th of September, and I've done work with them on and off for years. And for their big events, I'm lucky enough to get brought over to kind of support certain elements of the festival, just given my experience with them and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a massive undertaking. It's this huge concert to about 80,000 odd, or maybe 60,000 given the COVID situation at Central Park this year. So it'll be massive.
Wow. And talking about the COVID situation, what's it like there at the moment? Like, we get so many differing reports because we watch the news every night and we hear that the rest of the world is opened up and Australia's still the only country locked down. But then we have bands and artists come on the show who tell us that their country is still in a mild lockdown. What's it like in New York at the moment?
So New York is actually broadly open. You need to have a vaccination card or some such like that to actually sit in at restaurants, say. But most of the restaurants that are kind of facing a street have constructed these like awesome shelters for you to sit outside, and if you are unvaccinated, you can sit out there and eat and stuff like that. So the city is kind of operating and open, and I feel like they're a bit ahead of us in Australia because, given the population size, maybe given the governance and management of it, there's a handful of things that I obviously don't know that has contributed to their openness, but I feel like they have gone through it, whereas Australia hasn't so much gone through it, given their kind of zero cases mandate or whatever, just minimising the cases. But I think the States is just so big, they're just like, fuck, man, we can't possibly control this, but we can do what we can to make the impact less great. So they're going through it, whereas we're soon to start going through it, I think, as a country.
Definitely. Now, bringing it back to the Moth Effect, tell us a little bit about the show and how it all came about, because you've all got a comedy background, but how did this show specifically come about?
So Jazz Twemlow, the co-creator, was on a show called Tonightly with Tom Ballard, which toward the end of its reign, so it was up for one season, and then it got cancelled about 3/4 of the way through the first season. And so it had a quarter of the season to go, whilst all the kind of cast and crew and the writers and stuff knew that the show was going to end. So the showrunner at the time, Dan Illich, and I'm sure some other administrative staff, said, look, we've been cancelled, so go nuts. Go nuts. So that was the mandate to the writers. So what ended up happening is Tonightly started to make some cool shit. Like, really, I thought, cutting edge, dope stuff. And one of the writers on it, I caught a few of his sketches, Jazz Twemlow, and they were just great. I was just excited to see that kind of stuff on Aussie TV. But sadly, it was kind of getting cancelled. So at the end of Tonightly's run, I met with Jazz and I said, listen, man, I think what you're doing is great. I'm sorry that Tonightly's cancelled, but let's do some shit. And so he and I started to talk about the things that we like and things that we want to do, and that was the birth of the Moth Effect broadly, and that was like toward the end of or halfway through 2008. So that's when the seed was planted, and then we did an experimental online series called Nice Shorts, and then we kind of repositioned what we wanted to create after that, and then created the Moth Effect in, say, I think it was think it was early 2020, we got a clear idea of what we'd like the MOTH effect to be, and we're just bloody lucky, man, that we were able to get it in front of Amazon, and they were pretty supportive, obviously, and here we are. And the things that we wanted to do was, from comedically, there's a lot of like excellent comedians in the world that are doing, you know, political satire, but maybe, you know, dunking on politicians and doing a lot of heavy commentary. But we wanted to, say, be sympathetic to as many people as possible. So we didn't want to so much dunk on politicians as much as, say, comment on the systems where possible. So one of our mandates was, like, if we attack, say, mining, we want to go for coal mining, not coal miners, as a mandate. So it made us hopefully somewhat empathetic. But yeah, still having at the systems and where possible going for the jugular.
Does that make the writing more complicated? Like, I know it's very easy for a comedian to get up there and say, hey, let's do a piss take of Scott Morrison delivering a speech. But as you said, what you're doing is more pointing out the flaws with the system rather than anything else. Does that make the writing a little bit more difficult for you because you can't just get up there with a crazy Scott Morrison mask on and do an impersonation?
I would say, I don't know if it's harder, because the people that do that kind of stuff, they're damn good at it and are used to doing that kind of stuff. I think in the beginning it was challenging for us to kind of find a way to be, to be true to what Jazz and I liked doing. So we're like, what is it and why do we want to do this show, and why now? So it was maybe took a bit of thinking on our part and discipline on our part to formulate it. But once we got a flow on things, we had that, I guess, cheat sheet of what we didn't want to do. So it didn't make it harder necessarily from a writing point of view, but it certainly took us a couple of months to get us to the point where we knew the kinds of stuff that we wanted to make versus what we wanted to not make. So, but yeah, it's not easy, but nor is in some sense, you know, chucking on a Morrison mask. You know, some people that do that stuff, they're bloody great. So, yeah. I don't know. Is that a decent answer?
Yeah, it is. And I was going to ask, talking of things that are not easy, I know that writing sketch comedy is not easy because I used to be involved with a show on Channel 31. It was an entertainment show, but we used to do a sketch every week because we thought we were the new D-Gen coming through. That was the hardest part of our show every week, was actually sitting down to write that sketch. How do you guys come up with so many sketches that not only work, but are also so funny?
Oh, mate, it's such a lovely thing to say. I think just a lot of time and a lot of care. And you're right, like, doing sketch is scary as hell because it is pretty easy to be hit and miss, and I'm sure, you know, some people thought we missed and some people thought we hit, I'm sure, because that's the nature of sketch. But yeah, it's just bloody hard. I just don't know. I think we're lucky because Jazz and I have both had 10 years in the lead up to this to kind of try and sharpen our acts a bit. And also, Jazz, am I allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah.
I swear, but
That's fine.
Jazz is a motherfucker. Like, Jazz is a very academically gifted bloke, but also as silly as shit.
Yep.
And so we're really lucky to have a good mind meld conceptually. But when it came to polishing the sketches, Jazz has got this delightful touch as a writer. And I'm quite not too bad at, say, assessing the polish and assessing the scripts and making sure the jokes are punching. So we work quite well together in that sense. He's very much an engineer, and I can be a bit more of a foreman, say. And it works well together, I think, that both of our qualities.
The other thing, too, I think that sets your show apart is the big-name guests that you get on the show. Tell our listeners a little bit about some of the guests that they can expect to see as they watch the show, and how you guys went about getting them on the show.
Oh, so our EP, a lady called Sophia Zaccario, she's works for Bunya Productions, and Bunya have done this, like, you know, Sweet Sweet Country and Mystery Road and High Country and all this, like, beautiful, deep, lovely stuff. And Sophia's got this wonderful history of, she was at the ABC doing the Chaser stuff, and I could rattle off a ton of names. So really, I think in our case, attracting that talent was a combination of like Sophia and Bunya's goodwill, mainly, I think, to be honest, and then probably the Amazon name, which made it like a legitimate pursuit. And then lastly, maybe they didn't, some of the talent kind of thought our writing did not suck. So, but that was definitely the last part of it. And so, yeah, we're able to get like David Wenham, Miranda Otto, and Brian Brown, and Kate Box, who's a miracle, and Maine Wyatt. Shari Sevens directed a sketch. We had Gracie Otto as one of the directors, and she is this kind of casting savant, and also has phenomenal goodwill. It's like, yeah, get bloody... she's friends with Vincent D'Onofrio, and so she was able to captivate bloody Vincent's attention and get him on the show, which was just mental. Like, this bloke has worked with Stanley Kubrick for crying out loud. So we were just a bit like beneficiaries of the other people involved, and we were just lucky, man. Like, really lucky, because we wouldn't have been able to attract that talent if not for those elements, for sure.
Yeah.
But fortunately, as a follow-up, our writing wasn't too bad, and so we're able to, at least in that sense, give them some confidence that they weren't signing up to a stitch-up,
Yeah, so you didn't write those sketches with those people in mind. They came on board after the sketches were already written.
They did. But there was one sketch called Smart Pillow, where that's kind of it's a little bit Black Mirror-y, Black Mirror light, let's say, and we did have an actor of gravitas in mind when that was written. So we're like, imagine if we could get fucking X, Y, and Z, like, but we wrote it with someone like Dave Wenham in mind, someone who's a really good actor, and for the love of God, we got him. And in fact, Faramir and Eowyn being David Wenham and Miranda Otto in our sketch was a kind of career highlight for Jazz and me, especially given I'm just such a Lord of the Rings nerd. That was a weird moment. That was a weird good day.
Definitely. Now, I have to ask, how did the relationship happen with Amazon? Because, of course, you're probably like me. I grew up in a time when sketch comedy was everywhere in Australia. You had The Late Show on Saturday nights. You had the Comedy Company, Big Girls Blouse, Fast Forward. It was everywhere. But these days, it's not on as much. And if it is, it's more on the streaming platforms and on the digital channels. Is that the future for sketch comedy in Australia? And how did that relationship happen for you with Amazon?
Well, so just on that first question, whether sketch comedy could work on, say, terrestrial TV or, ABC or SBS, I'm sure it can work. But I think on our terrestrial networks at home in Australia, sketch comedy is hard because it can be expensive, it can be hit and miss. I empathise with networks not necessarily embracing it because it's not a no-brainer. It's like a some-brainer, regardless of someone's credentials. Like Jazz and I have done quite a bit in sketch or short-form stuff. But again, it's not a no-brainer, so I really do empathise. I don't have the answer as to why it wouldn't work other than some of the constraints, which is budgets. When you're creating a sketch comedy, you're really, not shooting a sitcom, which is 5 or 6 environments that you can either build or secure the locations for, and it really contains your budget and means it's finite as a shoot. But we were creating 30 short films essentially, so you need different wardrobe, costumes, casting, locations, set builds in some cases, prop builds in some cases. So yeah, it's just tricky. I think the streaming platforms are a bit more willing to take risks because they're new, their budgets are large, they have relatively infinite programming, they can dump as many shows as they like, whereas terrestrial TV has a finite amount of time in a day that they can show a show and have less spots for shows. So probably somewhere in there is part of the answer to that question. And then Amazon, man, like, I just drew luck. Like, I was in LA and went and met with Amazon and pitched them a completely different show, which was based on, it was a spin-off from Soulmates, which is a show that I did with Christian Van Buren and Connor Van Buren. And we wanted to pitch like a Kiwi Assassins TV show. And whilst it was a really enjoyable pitch and it was received really well, it didn't get picked up, but that's where the relationship was established. And I was just lucky that around that time, Amazon had their eye on coming to Australia and creating a satellite, office for Amazon. And they just said, we're interested in doing a thing, and we had Moth Effect in the barrel, kind of ready to go, and had recently just shot another kind of short form series, so we could show them a bunch of shit that we'd done. We had a pitch ready, and they were just like, yeah, let's do it. And it was just weird as hell. Like, you've done sketch, you've made shows and stuff. Like,
yeah,
you don't expect shit to get picked up. You don't expect yeses. You expect to work hard and to get no's. And when we got a yes, it was bloody weird.
Yep. I'm going through that at the moment, actually. We're working on a project that we're not allowed to talk about too much at the moment, but suddenly we had a distribution company approach us, which basically doesn't happen very often in the industry. So, yeah, we were kind of like that all of last week. We were kind of sitting there going, did that just happen? Like, yeah, it's a really weird feeling. Well, mate, I've got to wrap up. What would you like to say to our listeners out there before they sit down to watch The Moth Effect this weekend?
Look, I would just feel free to write to me on Facebook and just tell us what you think, good, bad, or otherwise. Like, I think Jazz and I want to ideally put nice little things out into the world and hopefully contribute a tiny, teeny weeny little bit of positivity to people's lives at this funny old time. So, yeah, just I hope that we've achieved at least in tiny incremental bit of positivity in our viewers' life. And we're so grateful for people that have watched it and liked it or given us out their thoughts. So, yeah, just I hope you like it, basically. Yeah.